In a minute or two, Mumtaz Suliman will be joining us to talk about her book, a book that's been waiting inside of her for a long, long time, a book that she's put off writing, but finally drummed up the courage to write the book. The book has finally been published, and she's going to talk about the book, what it means to her, how it's turned her life around, and what you will get out of reading the book. Welcome back. I'm so pleased to have an amazing, strong, fascinating woman in studio with me. Her name is Mumtaz Suliman. She's here to talk about the book she's written. It's called A Pinch of Saffron. Hasn't been launched yet, inshallah, post-COVID-19, post-lockdown, post-Ramadan, inshallah, post-everything. She'll be launching her book and I'll be certain to attend. A very brave young woman talking about, it's a memoir, it's her life story. She talks about abuse, how she's turned it around, how it's impacted in all of their lives. But she doesn't only talk about abuse in her own life, she talks about 5 generations. And I think I've heard this discussion before. I've heard that if abuse happens in a family, it gets carried down generation to generation. It's carried in the DNA. Let's get talking to the gorgeous Mumtaz Suliman. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for this opportunity.
My pleasure entirely, and I'm so thrilled that you've come in to talk to us. We know that women abuse is top of the agenda, not only amongst communities, but even government. So it's something people are now finally beginning to take seriously. And I know you've covered a lot of this in your book. This is your own personal story. But when and why did you believe it was important to tell your story? And do you believe that through your story and other stories that are being told, that men, our patriarchal men, are now going to sit up and take notice?
Absolutely. I think the purpose of the book was precisely that. So women can move past the victim mode and shift to taking their power back, and men can respect that as well. I also think that we get stuck in a place called blame. And so it's always his fault, and we need to shift that consciousness with a lot of tools that I highlight in the book. 6 of the major tools which can also take you through your COVID experience, because
which is
prayer, meditation, exercise, affirmations, gratitude, and forgiveness.
Absolutely.
So you can incorporate all 6 tools just during a 1-hour running program. So what I tend to do is after Fajr Salah, I meditate for an hour, I do a little bit of Quran. 8 to 9, I get 20 minutes of running, and I get my tasbihs done, Astaghfirullah, la hawla wa la quwwata, and Durud Sharif, Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel for them. Healing of the entire planet.
Absolutely. MashaAllah.
And then I switched on to gratitude during that exercise period, and forgiveness and affirmation. And this is not something that it's just a tool that you pick up whenever you need it. It's got to be consistently done every single day of your life for you to be able to shift. So yes, there were times, my book talks about 5 generations of pain, different kinds of abuse, and the patterns that you continue to attract. So I attracted an abusive husband. 15 years, I was treated like a mop until the day I rose and I decided to take my power back, and I said, no more shifting blame, no more victim or victor, no more who's right and who's wrong in tit for tat, but I needed to fix myself up. And so I shifted, and the process was gradually, it didn't happen by a day or a month.
But that first day, when you stood up to him and you said, stop it, enough is enough, do you think you shocked him into reality to realize that what he's doing is wrong? And why was he beating up on you, whatever his frustrations were or, are, why was he using you as a punching bag?
Yes, I think he shifted because he watched me not blaming him. I'd taken up a friend had recommended Ashika Singh's Heal Your Life. So I did that program. And so every single day, if he'd walk in from work into the lounge and I was in the lounge, I'd move my space to the kitchen. If he came
So
into
you
the
were
kitchen,
avoiding him?
I wasn't avoiding him, I just shifted my space. But he would watch me that if he tried to pick on me, I'd pick up a tool. I'd either go into prayer or I'd pick up my tasbih and I'd read my tasbih, just so I could center myself and feel grounded. So I didn't force him to change, and he didn't change immediately. It was a gradual change. I'd taken 1 year sabbatical. I left him for a year.
Okay.
So people had thought I'd gone to live with my dad to learn the flooring business. When I didn't, I took a separation. But I think in that time he realized that he needed to up his game, because he's either rowing this boat with me or he's out. But I have to share with you something very interesting.
You're still in a relationship with him. You're married
still-
to him. You're 30 years married?
28 years married.
28 years.
And the last
But
10
there was
years,
a 1 year gap in
was
that
a 1
marriage,
year.
that separation.
Yes. So that 1 year was my sabbatical. But so it took me many years to scratch. So when I went through him dragging me, I remember, I think I talk about it in the book, with my friends, and I'm ready to go out all dressed up, and he drags me by my hair across the tiled passage, and whatever comes in his way, he would take it and bash me. So my body was bruised, my face was bruised, my friends didn't know what to do. Life went on as usual. But for me, I realized that it wasn't my dignity and shame that was taken away that day. As I proceeded with healing modalities, my dignity and shame was snatched away such a long time ago. So long, Julie, Auntie Julie, it can read Once Upon a Time.
Right.
So memories from my childhood started surfacing because I didn't live with my parents. I was 6 years old, barely between 6 and 8 years old. And I would have, let's call him the visitor, because it's a road I don't want to venture into yet. The visitor would plaster his hands over my body.
So you were abused, sexually abused?
Yes.
From a tender age of 6 or 8 years old?
Yes, it could have been between 6 and 8. I can't tell you the exact time, but these memories only surfaced. Remember, I'd taken this abuse with my husband for 15 years, and so only well into my 30s, I got the help that I needed.
Did you believe at any point that you deserved it? Because
Yes.
you had done something wrong
Yes.
to attract all of this bad attention to you.
Absolutely, I felt not good enough, and I felt I deserved it. So when anybody offered me real love, I would build walls. I didn't want real love, because love was pain. I needed pain to know what love is. And so I think that's why I attracted these patterns. So the 6-year-old girl had gone through this abuse with this visitor. I remember the hands going over the mouth and me being unable to breathe, and actually holding my breath just because I don't know what to expect. I didn't know what it was. I remember myself for very long during my married life also sleeping in fetal position, holding here and holding here.
Trying to protect yourself.
Yes, trying to protect myself. I don't think I even had a first night when I'd married, but my husband was patient about that, because there was lots to deal with. I didn't open up this can of worms until way into my 30s. Now let's go back in time, because after 6 to 8 years old, I'm not living with my parents still. I get to madrasa. This could have been between 11 and 13. I developed a lot quicker than most girls. I got my period a week before my 12th birthday. I obviously appeared far more desirable than most 11 or 12-year-olds.
And all of these things that were haunting you, all these ghosts, that visitor that was sexually abusing you all of this time, it might have stopped or not. Mm-hmm. You were carrying all that guilt and shame, and you never ever shared it with anybody.
No, besides my mum.
And what did she say about it?
My mum lived 100 kilometers away from me. I only visited her twice a year. So it was difficult. My mum had given me support. I mean, the 11-year-old girl had met the madrasa's principal. Now remember, you're putting your child with role models, real role models. And this is supposed to teach you about Islam and teach you what's right and what's wrong and a God. And those experiences robbed me from so much, because I jumped right out of the pot. I had to defy a system that failed me. The system had failed me. I did piercings, I journeyed all along.
Were you abused at the madrasa as well?
Yes, I was abused at the madrasa.
People often say that, sadly, with due respect to you, that people who are abused go through life attracting other abusers to pounce on them.
That's very true.
It's a certain look or a
Yeah.
way you behave
Yes.
or engage with
You
people.
become far more promiscuous, or you tend to shy away from your sensuality or your. So I believe that 33 years of my life, I was denied of a great sexual life because I didn't want anybody to go further than that. I didn't know. For me, love was pain. It manifests into other illnesses. So my womb was gone by the time I was 38 years old. I think I had to have an emergency hysterectomy. Womb was gone, early setting of menopause. Now I've had the last 10 years of great healing. But really, what life do I have? I've given up the better part of my life.
Stand by, we're going for an ad break.
Thank you.
She says that she's given away the better part of her life through all of the sexual abuse from a tender age of 6, but she looks a picture of perfect health, alhamdulillah. I couldn't believe she has a 28-year-old daughter. She looks very, very young, carries her age beautifully. She's here to share her story, a very sordid story of sexual abuse and of abuse in general, but how she takes back her power. Don't go away. We'll be back with you in a minute or two. Mumtaz Suliman is an ex-educator, now a businesswoman, and of course an author. Written a book called A Pinch of Saffron. It's going to be launched sometime soon. She's talking about a story of utter and unthinkable abuse from the age of 6 in a very abusive marriage. Alhamdulillah, 28 years later, she's still in the marriage. A lot of people would say that you deserve the abuse that was meted out to you because you chose to remain in that marriage. What's your response to that?
I agree with that. Absolutely. I think women need to feel good enough and they need to value themselves more and not feel like the mop all the time, cleaning up
Why
the
did you remain in the marriage and ongoing abuse till you took your power back?
Besides love being pain, where will I go? What will the people say? What will the people say? What will the people say? I also have in the book where I begin my opening chapter is I give a vivid description of sleep paralysis that I'd suffered through all my life. And the Maulanas I visited. And so I touch on the evil eye and Jadoo because I was going completely cuckoo. Sent from this Maulana, I think I visited every Maulana from Johannesburg to Benoni, from Lens to Hagpoort. You ask me, I'll tell you I visited. Each one made me more crazy. I swore I could have been a part of the zombie apocalypse because everybody became a suspect.
And during this time, you were still raising 3 children.
I was still raising 3 children.
And you were still in the relationship with your husband.
Yes.
Apart from the 1-year sabbatical, what support were you getting? What were you thinking? Did your husband ever at any time, or the in-laws for that matter, say that he should divorce you?
No.
Because
My mom,
clearly this was a very dysfunctional relationship.
My mom's always been my mentor and someone that you can just speak to. She's just being in her. She reminds me so much of you. I think it comes from the name Julie.
Alhamdulillah.
It's comforting.
Thank you for
love,
the compliment.
There's anchoring, and that's exactly how I feel now sitting across you. I feel like I'm with my mom.
Thank you.
So she'd always, support
me. All right,
me.
so what does your husband say? I mean, you talk about him being an abuser. Is he not afraid or a bit embarrassed about the fact that once the book is read, people are going to kind of possibly look at him askance thinking, you were an abuser.
Yeah.
She's a great woman. She's still stuck with you.
I think the chapter in my book is called Ashiki, dedicated to him after the turning point. And people need to understand that I have so much of respect for a man who's walked further than I have in this journey. Because for him to have accepted and acknowledged that this is what I did, I'm ashamed, help me.
Wow. So did he go for counseling?
He didn't go for counseling. He would sit in during my workshops. Well, obviously in the other room, I run workshops for ladies. I don't charge them because I need for them to feel empowered. And you know what? Allah Ta'ala has blessed me in other ways.
Alhamdulillah.
So yes, and we practice the tools at home. So like I said, the tools is affirmations, gratitude, forgiveness, prayer, meditation, and prayer, meditation.
Gratitude.
Gratitude.
Okay,
yeah.
we don't want to give away too much. We want people to go out and buy the book when it is available. We also want people to join you for these classes. I'm top of the list. The next time you're rolling them out, please give me a tinkle. I will join you.
Absolutely.
But that being said, what has the book done for you? Your sense of self, your well-being, your relationship with your husband, and more importantly, you know, it's not me, myself, and I. We have at least 16 other people in our immediate circles that get touched by any positive or negative experience in our lives. So that's your children, your in-laws, your outlaws.
Yes.
How's that all played out?
During the journey, there are some people that you need to love from a distance. Some people are toxic for you. Some foods are toxic for you. Places are toxic.
I agree, people can be very toxic and you need to move away from them.
You need to move away. That doesn't mean that you hate them, because you need to shift to forgiveness, and forgiveness doesn't mean condoning a person's actions. It just means I'm setting myself free. I love you, I pray for you, but I'm going to do it from a distance and pray that your consciousness shifts at some point.
And just go on with your life.
And go on with your life, yes.
Were your children not perhaps embarrassed? I'm sure, look, the book hasn't been launched, but I'm sure that you've got young adult children.
Yes.
They've read the manuscripts, etc. Embarrassed and say, Mom, you've put too much of yourself out there. You're way too candid.
Yeah.
But why did you do it? People are going to maybe judge us.
My children have moved past what other people think.
Wow.
And the judgment, the self-righteous accusations or criticism, they've moved past it all.
How do you believe this book is serving you, your husband who abused you for many, many years? Alhamdulillah, you're now in a very fulfilling, loving relationship. Your children and other abused women. Because I guess these are the people that matter.
Yes.
That matter in your life, not forgetting your supportive mom, of course.
I think my main purpose for doing the book is I want a better life for our children, for our planet, better than what we've been served, because we were not given these platforms where we could stand and speak. And so a lot of them stay stuck in that situation or in the shackles of what society thinks, or this is my place, I need to make sabr.
And embarrassed that you're in an abusive relationship, because our community, because it's such a patriarchal community, or if you are not accepted fully by the in-laws, or if you were not the favorite daughter or the favorite child or the favorite sibling, whatever the story might be, would put the blame squarely at your feet. You're not a good enough daughter, you're not a good enough mother, you're not a good enough daughter-in-law, and more importantly, you deserve it because you've asked for it.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
How do you respond
How
to
do I
them?
respond when they ask me? Sorry,
And they're going to say that after they read the book as well. You deserved it. You've chosen to remain in that relationship, and you must be doing something wrong.
Yeah.
It can't be all his fault. What have you done for issues to get so terribly out of control that you end up getting a hiding of your life?
And how do I respond to them about that? I think, Auntie Julie, I'm past affirming and searching for validation from anybody. I've passed that. I've passed the answering to the questions. I would just continue being me.
Continue working on your wholeness.
Yeah, because whatever happens on the outside doesn't affect me on the inside. I'm so whole and complete. And I know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has never left me, despite the judgments I do face on a daily basis, because this is not the way I dress. And I believe that, like my book, the original title is something else. It contains profanity, but we sticking to a pinch of saffron, because I think that's what the South African market wants, because they're just walking with so many masks. And don't judge a book by its cover.
Literally and figuratively. Let's. I'm so happy to hear that you've made up with your husband, that he's changed, you've changed, he saw the shift in you, and it's made him reassess his life, his stance in this whole relationship, and you've come together in love, mercy, and kindness.
Absolutely.
Alhamdulillah, may continue to be so. But how much of your sexual abuse in the early years of your life damaged the relationship? You have to take a little bit of blame,
yes,
or you've got responsibility for that, and perhaps because of that you pushed him away, and he didn't know
yes,
how to react. He didn't know how, and this is the only way he knew how to respond to you.
No, you're absolutely correct. It was. That is why I'm saying that the earlier years had robbed me and shattered so many lives in the process. It wasn't
and damaged
fair.
you very
And damaged,
badly.
yes. Not just me, he also had to deal with it. He had to be very patient. And
the patience obviously tested his
ego.
Absolutely. And this is the only way he knew how to respond.
Yes.
Other
the
women,
knowledge he had at that time, yeah.
Absolutely. Other women in a similar situation as you, being sexually abused at an early age, or perhaps just being in a very, very abusive relationship, what is the book going to do for them when they read it? And in this day and age where we're talking about stop, I know there's a campaign that's going to break right after we come out of lockdown by Islamic Care Line, Slashing the Silence. They talk about sexual and general abuse against women. How's that going to add to the narrative and change the narrative that men should sit up and start respecting us, girls, women, our mothers, our sisters, our daughters?
I like what you're saying. Men are only acting from the spaces with the knowledge they have. It's like you mentioned earlier that they have these role models. So I'm sorry to say, but if the mothers are not teaching their children and they're not providing finishing school for them there, it's not the wife's problem. I'm teaching my son to the best that I can, respect a woman. The respect you give me, you're going to give your wife. The mothers have failed their children because they spoon-feed them. Yes, and the fathers walk in with this authority and control in the home that I am the boss and what I say goes. And yes, it doesn't always have to be like that. The woman needs to have a little bit of a voice. She needs to have a face. She needs to have a voice. She's a human being. She needs to be treated.
How far spread do you believe is this type of abuse in South Africa? I'm not going to say our community because what perpetuates in our communities is happening all around the world. How deep-rooted is this problem?
It is.
You've been brave enough to write a book. What more can we do?
What more can we do? I think that we have enough platforms that are available. The women just don't have the courage to speak out. Or the men for that abuse, there are men also that are abused.
Absolutely.
But they're afraid. I think it's fear that keeps them bound. And again, back to what will people say. You need to go beyond those limitations and the belief systems. What will people say? What others think is not your problem. What others are doing is not your business. Yeah.
Okay. 2 minutes to wrap up. Do you believe that this is a very deep-rooted problem in South Africa?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And I think maybe the education systems need to implement something there with affirmations and gratitude and giving the tools so the kids feel empowered.
How do we protect our children? How do we protect vulnerable 6-year-old girls and boys? We send them off to schools, madrasas, wherever it is, whatever school, whatever institutions of learning, with the best of intentions, and then find that they've been sexually and physically abused. What needs to happen to protect our children? We know what's happened at Parktown Boys with the swimming coach, and then many such stories playing out.
It's a lack of education, and it's a lack of communication. Parents need to, it starts off at home. Make your child feel the two things they need is love and anchoring. They need to feel safe, and they need to know it's okay to speak. My body is my body. I've taught the kids at home because I've got 6 little soldiers there with my sister's boys. I've taught them if anybody touches you, you scream rape. It's okay, you just scream rape because everyone's going to come running. So they need to understand that their body is their body. And
it's sacred and belongs to them.
It's sacred, it's a temple for the divine.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you indeed for coming in and sharing something that is so personal. Lots of luck with the launch of the book. I certainly will try and be there, inshallah. Thank you for being so brave, for coming on
there's
to
just something I
such a
need-
public platform to share your story of abuse. And thanks to your husband and the rest of your support system that made you go ahead, believe in yourself, and to write the book, to tell your story, which needs to change other people's lives.
Absolutely. I think a salute to them at home. Thank you so much. But I need to ask you a favor. If you could just ask the viewers, my international market on the book has already, it's already in the final editorial process. South African is a Breeze publisher.
Right.
I'm still toying. I don't know how well South Africa is going to receive the title with profanity or a pinch of saffron. See what the viewers think. If
Inshallah.
they can.
Do you have a web page? Are you on Facebook?
I've got my Instagram.
Are you Instagram? Just give us...
Taz_Suliman.
Right. So let's hope that they come to you, that visit your Instagram and put down their comments. Thank you indeed. You're one
Thank you.
brave
When I grow
lady.
up, I'm going to be you.
There you have it. A brave lady indeed. Mumtaz Suliman talking about rape, abuse, sexual and all sorts of abuse from the age of 6. She's written a book. She's still in the marriage with her husband who abused her for many years. Alhamdulillah, it's a happily ever after story. Let's hope and pray all of you women out there and men who are victims of abuse, take back your power and make yourself be counted.